In this video, I want to narrow down the 3 most important traits of high-level elite high school players so that you can make sure you're developing these traits so that you can dominate at the high school level. Yesterday, I put together a list of the 10 best high school players that I've coached, and then I also put down a list of the traits that each of them had. Now, I'm a head high school varsity coach, and I've been an assistant varsity coach for 5 seasons before that. So I've seen so many different players, super successful ones, and some who underachieved as well. And so when I put together that list of the 10 best players that I've personally coached, there is so much overlap and massive areas that screamed out that if you want to be a successful player, you should be doing these same things. The best part is there wasn't a one-size-fits-all for these players. A lot of them have different strengths, different weaknesses. A lot of them are shorter, taller, more athletic, less athletic, but they all did these 3 things, and that was how they were able to dominate at the high school level. Obviously, as a player, I always wanted to be that type of player, and now as a coach, I'm able to see a much bigger sample size. And like I said, I see the players who succeed and the ones who don't. So right now I want to give you the 3 things you need to focus on if you want to make sure that you achieve a high level of success both this season and in years future. So the number 1 thing that these 10 players did, and it might sound a little bit obvious at first, but I think that it's really important for you to understand, is that they had a very clear way that they impacted games. Now let me preface all of this first by telling you that of these 10 players, only one of them I can look at and say that they had literally no weaknesses. There's 2 crazy things about that. First of all, that one player isn't even the best player on this list. In fact, he's probably not even in the top 5 of players on this list. And the second thing that's crazy is some of these guys had some insane weaknesses, like big weaknesses, and it didn't matter because the way that they impacted the game and their strengths were so dominant that it overcame all the other stuff they didn't have. So being an elite high school player isn't about being great at everything. It's not about being perfect. It's not about being able to do every single thing on the court, but it's about having 1 or 2 areas that you can make an impact every single time you step on the court, and that impact is so great that it overcomes any other weakness you might have. So for example, there's a couple of players on my list that are elite level shooters, like can make shots from 3 at a really high level, can heat up, and next thing you know, they've hit 8 threes in a game, 9 threes in a game, and it doesn't matter how you guard them, they're gonna put the ball in the basket. But some of those players are not very good on defense. In fact, some of them are bad on defense, but because they're so elite in the way they impact the game, it is able to overcome and overshadow the weaknesses that they might have. There are other players who have elite size and maybe they're super skilled. They can shoot, they can finish inside, they can make good decisions, but athletically they're not great. Like they can't move laterally that well, maybe they don't jump all that high, but again, the way that they impact the game is so great it overcomes the other stuff. So the big takeaway here is that you need to figure out who you are as a player. Write down your top 3 best skills. So for example, maybe your best skill is your shooting ability. Next to that, write exactly how you can use that to impact a game. So you know, my best skill is my shooting, and I can use that to score more points, but I also am gonna be able to space the floor better for my teammates and open up opportunities for them. That's how I impact winning. Maybe your best trait is how quick you are. So you can use that as a way to be a great defender, to be able to get paint touches and draw in, help defenders so you can kick out and create shots for your teammates. The point that I'm trying to make here is that the worst place you can be as a player is kind of just okay at everything. They call it a jack of all trades and master of none, meaning you can do everything kind of okay, but there's nothing that really makes you stand out. Once you have that list of your best 3 skills, go all in on becoming elite. Become the best player on your team at doing that thing, at impacting the game that way. That's how you become irreplaceable, and that's how you're able to still stay on the court, play a ton of minutes, and have a ton of success, even if you have other weaknesses in your game. So instead of just thinking about what workout should I be doing, what drills should I be doing, think about what is the type of player that I need to be, what are the focuses that I need to have, and how do I build my training around that. Before we move on to number 2, I have a free 28-day Basketball IQ email course linked down below. We see some amazing results. Shout out to my guy Sven above. He just sent me this email earlier today, helping you transform the way that you see the game, your decision-making, your confidence, all this stuff that goes into you actually being able to go out and play at a really high level. Obviously, this stuff matters, your skill level matters, but if you don't see the game the right way, if you don't make good decisions consistently, then it's gonna prevent you from ever being able to make the impact on the court that you want. That's why I created this free email course, like I said, linked down below. The second thing that all 10 of these players had in common was an unshakable level of confidence. Now, this is what everybody wants to have, and without a doubt, all of these players have it. And when I say unshakable confidence, I literally just mean that they were unfazed by missed shots. They were unfazed by bad games. They were unfazed by turnovers. When those things happened, it did not impact them going forward. One of them might start off missing the first 4 shots they take that day, and it didn't matter. They don't even think about it or shooting the next one. One of them might turn the ball over twice coming off of a ball screen. Doesn't matter. They're going to come off and play confidently regardless. One of them might have a game where they shoot 2 for 15 from 3. doesn't matter. They're going to show up the next day and expect that they're probably going to make 10 that day. You can walk into the gym a day after a practice or the next time I see them during a workout after they haven't played well, and you literally can't even tell that they just played horrible or that they had a bad performance. This alone might be the biggest key to their success, and the way that they were able to develop this is very simple. They faced repeated exposure to these difficulties, to these struggles, and they just kept showing up regardless of it. All of them were willing to actually put themselves out there and risk failing. And what they realize is that failing is not the end of the world. It's actually not that big of a deal. In fact, most of the time, you think that everybody else is thinking about you and your mistakes and how terrible you're playing, when in reality, your team is thinking about the mistake that they made. Your coaches are thinking about how they messed up substitutions or how they messed up a matchup or how they put the wrong play call in for that game. And because they were able to get over themselves and just move on to the next play, because they did it over and over and over again, and they subjected themselves to difficulty and to failure, eventually they were just numb to it and it didn't faze them at all. There's a great book by an author named Ryan Holiday, and it's called The Obstacle is the Way. And I think that encapsulates what I'm saying here. You need to be able to put yourself into the fire. Those situations that you're afraid of, those ones that make you nervous, ones where you're fearful of messing up or looking bad, you've got to put yourself in that situation, understanding that you might fail. There's a great chance that you will, but you're going to learn a lot from that. And as long as you keep yourself going, you're going to get better, and throwing yourself in the fire is actually what's going to make you an elite player. All 10 of these players had a very steady belief in themselves. They never were too high after a good game, never too low after a bad game. There was just a constant self-belief that they were going to show up and play well the next time. And it was as simple as that. So what this might look like for you is you want to go and play against the best players that you can. If you know that if you go to this gym, you're going to see players who are better than you, who are going to challenge you and might make you look bad, be willing to subject yourself to that over and over again and not worry about the result day to day. Just keep showing up, expecting that you're going to make good things happen. And eventually, not only are you going to start to play better, you're going to start making an impact, you're going to start to play at a high level, but eventually you're not even going to be fearful of it anymore because you're going to be numb to it because of the amount of times you've repeatedly exposed yourself to it. If you have fall workouts right now, go guard the best scorer on your team as often as you can, knowing that throwing yourself in that fire is going to make you better. And that kind of leads me into my third and final point, that all 10 of these players were willing to be uncomfortable over and over again. First of all, they all wanted feedback. If they were doing something poorly, they wanted someone to tell them, hey, you need to be better at that, or hey, you're not doing that well enough, or hey, you need to be doing this instead. They didn't run from being coached. They didn't run from being challenged. They didn't run from being pushed. They wanted that. A lot of players are so caught up in their own ego. They're caught up in how they feel. They're caught up in getting defensive or being argumentative about anybody who's calling them out on anything. But the players who I've seen have the most success want to be held to a higher standard. They want to be challenged. And like I mentioned earlier, they're not afraid of looking bad. A great example of this is that I had a couple players who were on this list who I invited to come play with some college players that were kind of like down the street from where I'm from. And these guys made a pretty far drive to put themselves in that environment against really, really good players where sometimes they would play well, sometimes they wouldn't play that well. But they were willing to be uncomfortable. They were willing to look bad because they knew that that challenge is what was actually going to propel them forward. There is no way to get to that elite level, to get to the level that you probably want to get to, if you skip that step. If you dodge the smoke, as I like to say, if you're afraid of the challenge, then you can never get there. Like I said, all 10 of these players were very different players. They had different strengths, different weaknesses. They looked different. They played different. They thought about the game differently. But these three traits, number one, the way that they had a very clear way that they impacted the game. Number two, the way that they had unshakable confidence no matter what happened. And number three, they were willing to be uncomfortable. They were willing to be challenged. Those three things are traits that all these players had across the board. So if you want to become that type of player, there's the roadmap for you to follow. Like I mentioned earlier, make sure you check out that free 28-day Basketball IQ email course down below, top link in the description. Drop a comment, let me know what you think, any takeaways maybe you had from this. I appreciate you for watching. Talk soon. Peace.